There, it's Marcus here. FUT202. This is an experiment for me, really. Futures feeling is what I want to focus on in this series of lectures, and it grows out of my work on the futures senses and anticipatory aesthetics. And the whole point of it is to unpack how I understand culture, how it evolves, and of course its relationship to our thinking and enacting alternative futures, opening them up both for ourselves but also for others. The short PowerPoint that I'm going to work with is actually a PowerPoint I'm going to be presenting the coming week for the Brisbane Futures Collective. So this is my, in a sense, a dry run for that, but it's also my way of, I guess, introducing you to what is going to be the content of the formal lectures, which are going to appear as of next week, being that my whole family, except for me for some reason, have been stricken by COVID over the last week, and so I've been kind of distracted and sort of managing the household, but also making sure that for good reasons I don't come down with the disease too, and it seems to have skipped me this time, so I'm feeling very grateful for that. But anyway, so this is my sort of informal introduction to what will be a kind of formal letter to you. It's kind of like, here we go, this is what we're going to be looking at. The talk that I'm giving is a short talk, and it's going to be a short talk that incorporates a short workshop. I will, given that the recording of the workshop itself goes according to plan, I will also make the recording of the workshop available to you so you can see how in action I actually sort of try to pull this thing off. It's kind of like pulling a rabbit out of the hat because there's so much here, and I've only got an hour or something like that to actually run the workshop. So I'm going to give them the thinking first. I'll give you the thinking first right now, and then I'm going to run people through a very quick set of processes that touch on the futures senses and how that I actually do go about running the workshops when I'm enabled to spend more time unpacking things, which of course is what we're going to do in the tutorials that accompany the lectures, and we'll sort of get to sort of play with the ideas more, and it will be interesting to see how you all respond, whether you think this is the sort of thing that can work for you or not. So I'm going to go to desktop now, where I've got this beautiful slide, and you can see there futures feeling. Okay, it's an anticipation and futures senses workshop. We have there a bee being attracted to a flower. My basic thesis, and this underpins all my futures work as well as my history and cultural thinking and writing as well, is that human beings are driven by a call to be in the world. I call that formally yearning to be in the world, and I use the analogy of pheromones, futures pheromones. I like it because it sounds so you've got the consonants there, but it's also a fun way of understanding that pheromones, which of course are largely hormonal, linked to corporeal or physical expression, can be understood also to act as cultural lures. What calls us into the world, and how do we go about thinking and feeling our way into the practices of futures thinking and feeling, because they go together. I don't want to suggest that futures thinking is not important, but I think we often put the thinking before the feeling, right? So one of the little PDFs that I'm going to be sharing to accompany this talk is where I start. I start with quoting myself. My basic premise is that culture can be understood as an anticipatory system. It has evolved to keep us safe and to provide a context for identity formation. Cultural beings, that's us, anticipate through the use of memory, foresight, voice, optimism, and yearning. They are the 5 future senses that I like to refer to, and I go back to them more and more regularly all the time now, because they really inform my pedagogy, which is where it all started. Jim Data back in 2016 asked me to write a paper on how do I teach the future, how do I go about it? And it was in that paper, which I will also be sharing with you, that I first lay out my thinking on memory, foresight, voice, optimism, and yearning. But let's start off with a little bit of fun. Here we have my little hot dog man. He's on a stage. Life is a stage. We perform life. We are performative beings, and we have a lot of fun sometimes, but you know, performance can also be misery and horror. You just think of the performance of the violence around the world, the political polarization, the stuff that captures at the litany level, thinking CLA, the kind of messages that we get. Trump is performing, Musk is performing, Netanyahu is performing, Putin is performing. They are all on their own stage, and they like to think that they manage and control the stage. But the stage is actually built from a wide range of cultural drivers. Here are a few: play and gender, social structures, religions and belief, fears, aspirations broken up, sources of production, environment, technology, work, language, dreams, imagining, history. All of these things come together. So if we think of life as a stage, and here I'm thinking of the work that Dr. Alyssa Farrow has done on mindsets, it's a bit like that. The mindset is informed by these kinds of drivers. So moving on. So we inhabit imagined orders. I take that term from Yuval Harari. Anybody who's followed my work at all know that I lean quite heavily on this concept of imagined orders. Essentially, they're important to me because the imagined order suggests that we actually live in realities that we co-create. Our realities are co-created through the nexus of those kinds of points that I put in the little bubbles in the previous slide. This means that we are socialized beings, and at the same time we exercise some degree of personal choice, depending on where we are, time, place, person, in how we understand our reality. That means that our sense-making is conditioned. Our capacity to imagine and feel futures before us is conditioned. Our world inhabits the very fiber of our bodies, right down to the cells, which resonate with the worlds we inhabit. In other words, our cellular frequency, our body frequency, our psychological frequency resonate with the worlds that we inhabit. And this is really important to me, because once we understand that there's a resonance there, and those who know me know that I'm a musician also, understand that we can change the key we're playing at or singing at or dancing at, like the hot dog man. So thus, the future, or as futures, is cellular and corporeal and responds according to the rules of our realities. And those rules change according to all those elements that I put on the life as a stage slide. The collective and the individual, therefore, are always negotiating a working space. This is what Habermas has called the life world. So I think of this in how do we tell stories informed by these future senses. So what are the ingredients? So we've got memory. Memory is a primary or fundamental future sense. It's a cultural and personal data set. Everything in our culture is data that informs the way we sense make. So it's the story as given. Foresight, that's the art of drawing on memory, aka the data, to curate working and workable visions of possible futures. This is story as emergent possibility. Combine that, those two, we then arrive or land on the sense of voice, futures sense, the degree to which one is able to generate and engage with story. So this is story as action. This is story as us on the stage enacting our stories. We all live stories. Take away stories and we basically take away us. We take away the worlds we inhabit. So think of colonialism and the power of colonialism to silence or negate stories and privilege other stories. There's optimism. This is really important, of course. It emerges from the interaction of the previous three. We need to understand that we curate memory. That's the first sense. And that this curation enables us to anticipate otherwise. That's foresight. That's the sense of foresight. And that our voice can be modulated. And this fosters optimism, the story of possibility. To understand, once we get a handle on memory and foresight, we can and voice, we can understand that our realities are not given, they are not set in stone, that we can, to some degree, bring about alternatives, maybe resurrect them, rediscover them, re-narrate them, or actually generate, through the use of imagination or anticipatory imagination, rich alternatives. Finally, we come to yearning. Now this is the essence. It is what I've called the future's pheromone that calls us into life, into living, becoming. This is always a next horizon. Sorry, there is always a next horizon. And this horizon calls to us. We yearn to expand and grow. This is a story of unrequited love. That means that wherever we are, we're still building new futures. We're still called to be in the world. There's always something more. Now, as a materialist, it might be you just need more money. Elon Musk is not happy with the money he's got. He seems to think he needs more. And that would be true of Imelda Marcos, who always seemed to need a new pair of shoes, if you remember that old story from the 1980s. But it's like the itch that just keeps us going. And I talk about the itch in terms of the arts and the way arts are always calling us into the world too. I should put that reading up as well. I hope you're keeping a record of these readings that I'm supposed to be putting up to make sure that you hold me to it, that I actually do make those readings available. So, what can we say? Well, first of all, we need to just reflect briefly on culture and the way it works. So, culture tends to slow change down. It's kind of like a dampening field. The culture that you inhabit, that I inhabit, each one of us inhabits, cultures that are very similar. Let's say we're all Australians here, or we're all Westerners. We are influenced by the Enlightenment thinking. We're influenced by industrialization and modernity, post-modernity, and so on, post-colonialism, and so on. The culture acts as a dampening field. It slows us down. It slows change down, and it's entropic too. It leaks energy, which leads us to transformation. So we must always struggle against conditioning, what I call the trance of the present. That's us acting as conditioned zombies that just go around doing what we've been programmed to do. And power, of course, the dominant powers, the powers that have a vested interest in the maintenance of a certain kind of cultural paradigm, work very hard through the media, through conditioning, through institutions and so on, to maintain a certain grip on the present. And we can see that very clearly in the world around us today. So I ground future senses in a set of aesthetic emergent processes. That sounds rather abstract, and to be honest, it is. But the aesthetic is the sense of what is good, what makes sense, what feels good. Again, this future's feeling, what feels good, what makes a certain painting or a certain piece of music attractive to us, satisfying. Mozart for some people, Led Zeppelin for others, and Taylor Swift for others. Whatever, it doesn't really matter where it is. These forms of aesthetic expression, we will resonate with them according to our own cultural and aesthetic conditioning. Okay, I don't think anything is ever given as a set that is absolute. Aesthesis itself refers to embodied experience as the ground for sense making. If you think back to slide, 3 or 4, where I was talking about the conditioning that our cells resonate at certain frequencies, and we can change those. Dopamine is really important. I talk about it in another reading. I call it grace hacks, okay, where we experience things that explode the reality that we have so-called been imprisoned in, you might say, or established in, and suddenly new emergent possibilities arise. And I think that is wonderful and exciting, but also deeply problematic in a world that is invested in maintaining the present. Okay, we need to understand futures feeling whilst practicing the thinking that goes with it. So futures thinking is what we covered pretty much in the last set of lectures for Futures 101. In Futures 202, we're going to be looking at futures feeling. So let's try it out. Here we've got a wonderful image of a young woman doing what's called a one-hand dance. One-hand dancing is something that I use quite regularly in workshops. It is drawn from the beautiful practice of interplay, which was developed in the US by Cynthia Winton Henry and Phil, whose other name, his surname has escaped me right now. But, you know, it's a wonderful practice. This is a little video. If I go up there, you'll see it click. Yes, you can see the YouTube clip that I draw that image from. And they talk you through it in about 1.5 minutes. They show you how to do a one-hand dance. So what's the process look like? Well, what we're going to do on this coming Tuesday is I'm going to get people, first of all, to do a one-hand dance as an icebreaker. I'm going to get them out of their heads because I've just thrown all that sort of information at people. I'm going to say, okay, breathe, slow down. I'm going to put on a really cool piece of music, and I'll get people to do a one-hand dance. It will last for a couple of minutes so that they can really start to get over, I guess, their inhibitions first, and then move into a kind of meditative state where they are actually working with their body. We're in a quite a constrained site, so I can't get people running around and jumping up and down, but we can do a one-hand dance. From there, I'm going to ask them to do this. Find a photo on your phone. Now, you might want to do the one-hand dance first, and if you pause the video constantly as we go through these processes, you can do this yourself. Find a photo on your phone, please. Okay, have you got one? All right. Now, sit with somebody and pair and share, focusing on the memories associated with it. That's the future's sense of memory, of course. That's what I'm tapping into there. Then I say, ask. And you can ask yourself, or you can do it as a pair. What anticipatory energy does it contain? Maybe it's a photo of your child, or a photo of a beautiful scene, or a photo of somebody having fun, or it might be a photo taken that you grabbed off the internet from, you know, something you were reading, something that's inspirational, or something that actually turns your stomach, you know, the photos of Palestine or something like that. Okay, so what anticipatory energy is it? Fear, anxiety, hope, concern, all right? What arises? Then ask yourself this: how might I enable, this is the future sense of voice, of course, how might I enable that anticipatory feeling now and into the future? And I probably, as I'm looking at that now and I'm talking to you, maybe the term enable is, certainly it works if it's a positive feeling you're feeling there. But if you're feeling, you know, deep concern over the genocide in Palestine, it might be how might I respond to that anticipatory feeling is probably a better term. That I might change that slide for the workshop that I run on Tuesday for the Brisbane Futures Collective. All right, but that's the question that I'm asking now, and I'll be asking the people on the day of the workshop. And then I'll say, well, am I optimistic about a future that this photo is gesturing towards? If it's a photo of a beautiful rainforest or a sunset, or you're down at the beach and you've just taken a photograph of a whale doing one of its beautiful leaps out of the water and so on, whatever that might be, are you optimistic, okay, about that future? And finally, you can ask, what do I yearn for in relation to that future? What are we yearning for? Okay, are we yearning for security for our child or our grandchild, or for the people in Palestine, for a world and a life of dignity and so on? Or are we worrying about the ocean and acidification and climate change for the whales? We can, but the yearning is always a call to action, a call into the world. Okay, it's really important to understand that. So that's the workshop. Okay, and from the workshop, I will then draw the workshop together once people have been through that process, and there will be some to and fro, and there will be some reflections, and I'll do the normal workshopy sort of thing. But given I've got an hour, I'm not going to get much time to do that. I'm just looking at the clock here. I've just spent 21.5 minutes just walking through to this point without any opportunity for discussion and so on. So I'll have about 20 minutes, 25 minutes at the most to run people through those questions. So what are the reflections that I'll be asking people to, or offering people, that's the thing, offering people. And of course, these reflections may shift given that whatever arises in the workshop. But let's think about it. So first of all, reflection one. Each sense stands on its own and could be the focus of an entire workshop. We can, particularly my historical sense, very aware of how history is constructed, how it often privileges certain power stories and power elites and so on. But there's a subaltern sort of underground histories that we can also turn to. But, we need to understand that each sense is, in fact, a potent source of insight and understanding about the world and the way it functions. And to get people to be able to reflect on them is an incredibly liberating and empowering process. For me, the core of all of the senses is yearning. I'm going to focus a little bit more on that. From my study of history and culture and futures, and all that goes with all of that, yearning is the evolutionary driver that has built civilizations and sustained the human exploration of self, other, and the inner outer dimensions of being in the world. We yearn to be connected and fulfilled. We yearn for love in the broadest sense of that word. Love means community, relationship, to be in relationship with, in a loving relationship with, where care becomes a prime ethic in driving us as we interact with the world, informing our actions and challenging us as a critical function to think about our relational dimension with the world. In my writing, I often call that critical spirituality, because this kind of yearning is spiritual, okay? Yearning is fundamentally spiritual and never fulfilled. It is the future's pheromone at the heart of being in the world. That pheromone that calls me forward into being. If you've ever been in a love relationship, which I hope most of you have, and possibly still are, you will know that sometimes there's this magnetism there. There's something that's calling us, and that is deeply pheromonal in the actual use of the word in terms of hormonal. Okay, that our hormones and dopamine and so on inform the way we construct our realities. We need to understand this, because that's where feeling comes from. When I get people to dance and move and suddenly open up to just joy, no actual reason to be joyful, just being joy because we're having fun, we're playing, and we're playing on our own. But you could also, and it's even more fun when we play in collective groups, when we play with others, because of course the relational is actually requires community, doesn't it, if we think about it? Okay, so my question to you then is, can you feel the future's emergent? Breathe in, breathe out. To me, it's really a joy to be able to share these thoughts with you. And I look forward to taking this conversation forward in the coming weeks. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this for a moment and just say, I hope to see you all in the coming weeks joining me in this incredible journey. It's the first time I've actually deliberately and consciously constructed a course, a series of pedagogical engagements, how does that sound, around these future senses. And normally I keep them in my back pocket and they inform my own practice, but this is the first time I'm going out on a limb and sharing it with you. I hope you appreciate it. I'm certainly looking forward to going further with it. Thank you so much and take care.